I've always been interested in arts at school, and when I left school I studied photography and have been working as a photographer ever since. And more recently I've been teaching photography at colleges and schools, university. So yeah, I've always, as an adult, been a photographer. After leaving college I was worked as a documentary photographer for quite a long time. But I've also been involved with commercial photography, and in more recent years I've started been doing more of my own fine art based photography. I was invited to get involved with the Case Festival several months ago. I researched some local photographers, historic photographers, a photographer called Olive Edis, who lived and worked in Sheringham in about 1900, and her uncle John Murray, who was a Victorian photographer in very early days of photography, 1850, very, very early, who used large format cameras with paper negatives. And so, thinking about paper negatives, I went on to decide to work with pinhole cameras.
It's going to be that, but it's going to be it takes really wide angled shots, so it'll be probably go all the way down that direction, and it will probably take in a little bit of this in the background. It's going to get dark.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's focus in.
So these are some of the pinhole cameras that I've made up, and one of the challenges I set myself was to use recycled packaging that I found locally. So some of this stuff has been washed up on the beach, like this drum here. This has a mammoth, inspired by the mammoth that was found in the cliffs at West Rumington a few years ago. So he's become my kind of logo for the project. To do pinhole photography you need to use old-fashioned light-sensitive materials such as film or photographic paper, and because it's light-sensitive it needs to be kept in a dark place. So the inside of the drum's been painted black, and then the photographic paper I'm using in this camera is stuck on the inside of the back of the camera, and then the front is sealed shut and taped up. And then on the front here you've got a pinhole, and that's covered up with a piece of gaffer tape or black paper, black plastic, and then you expose the image by taking that away from the pinhole, and on average the exposures take about 5 minutes. As well as stuff that I've found on the beach, I've been using just ordinary packaging. So there's a couple of cameras here in the middle of being made. So here's a washing powder box, which I have lined with black paper, and I will then make a hole in the front of the box. And then there's a tiny one here. This is kind of the ultimate in recycling. This is toilet roll camera, which takes cylindrical pictures which kind of warps and distorts the image. And these are results of some of the pinhole photographs that I've made. These are made in the last week or two. Just a small sample.
Well, I think when we heard about the Coast Festival, one of the big things that really comes to mind, particularly in Norfolk, is the sky and how big the sky is and how little we really pay attention to it. And we decided to do this Own the Sky, where people pay a penny to paint a piece of sky, and it's really still about ownership and whether or not we're guardians of our natural world or whether or not we believe we own it.
And we've just got everybody today to kind of come in. As you can see around us, they've got their pieces of fabric which are hanging up, as you've just seen around there, and it's just for everyone to kind of look at some section of the sky and kind of give us their interpretation of what they're seeing today. In the weather, looking out to sea, it's been a much brighter, bluer sky, and then as some of the children behind pictures here, they've been looking at the very dark clouds behind us, and they've been choosing which part of the sky that they would like to paint. And as you can see, they're all very different. So just for anybody who comes along. So it's quite nice that they're kind of coming down here, not really expecting to find us kind of sat at the beach shelter. So it's really nice for them just to not really think about it too much, and they're just kind of coming down and then just having a bit of freedom to paint how they want, with sponges, with their fingers, whatever. So they're all having a good time really, just to get their feeling about the weather.
It is really interesting how some of them, the sun is a particular thing that no matter what the sky is like, kids always paint the sun in it as a sunny day. And then we've got those who have really captured, as Ali was saying, those really dark clouds. But behind you, this is a grandma who was given an opportunity to paint today. And she's someone who's only just really got into painting. She hasn't had a go before, and has taken it up very recently as a hobby, and was really over the moon really to be able to share something with her grandchildren.
Frame we just kind of wanted the props, so just framing any kind of, they didn't really necessarily just have to look through that, but it's quite nice when you look at that, and then obviously the movement of the clouds, especially on a windy day like today, is that's forever changing. So they can kind of come here to start with and look at that and to see how that's moving, and it just catches that framed look of the whatever's going on in the sky today. So just there to give them an idea really.
When you put a frame around something, people instantly focus in on it, and I think that's part of what we were trying to get across, is to really look at the sky and realise that we're just guardians of it rather than ever having to own it.
Each person is paying a penny, and when they've paid the penny, they are receiving a certificate to say that they have owned the sky for that moment, and so they're not only capturing their moment on a piece of fabric, but they're also our guardians of it officially with a nice certificate. Right, George.
George.
Thank you, George. Thank you for your piece of sky. Lovely, thank you.
What did you say?
Henry. You're Henry.
Cool.
It's all right.
And Henry?
Why, Henry, thank you very much. This is one by the
kind of the beginning sorted out really, knowing where to go from there, taking
a lot of talking to people really, of getting some ideas from them, starting to get people to bring things to me, which has been quite nice. They're bringing their stories and surf stories, but also stones from the beach, other bits and bobs. I wanted to start with a point of reference for what the project's about, so I sort of had the idea of creating what I'd call a place of offerings to the good swell. It's the idea where you come along and bring something and hope for big waves. So that's the first sort of point of call in terms of referencing sort of surfing, but also to open it up in terms of ideas that you can to bring objects collected, personal to you, and leaving them somewhere. And then from that, once this is sort of shrine's the wrong word, it's got too many religious connotations, but a place of place to share stuff. And then from here I'll expand out and open it up and get more participation with people, the stuff they've bought. So it's just really a point of call really to kind of start a discussion really, because you actually sit there and talk with people, get them involved in the ideas of what possibly weather means to them. It's been a really nice mixed bag actually. There's a lot of local people, very local people, who are popping down every day to see what's going on, and they're kind of intrigued. You know, what are we doing here? What's the point? Where's it going? And that's been quite nice. But obviously people have been coming from quite far afield, and again, I was a bit kind of, you know, they quite enjoy the process of watching people work, seeing something evolve. So they've not. Some people come with the expectation of doing something immediately, and so they realise that it's a kind of evolving, developing process with people responding to the site and the area, and people who come, they kind of open up quite a bit, and it's been quite exciting really. I'm primarily a sculptor, and I do lots of projects which involve working with people and collaborations. And just getting involved in this project, it was just coincidentally that obviously this part of East Anglia is kind of like the epicentre of surfing. It's a very kind of, when I surf here, I surf down the road, and if you're going to do a project which talks about the coast, people who use the coast, who influence the coast, or relate to the coast, you need to have a dialogue with people who surf, because it's a very specific kind of use of the water and the waves.
Yes, my name's Gaia and I'm working for Culture of the Countryside on the Coast Festival, which is October 2010, and I'm working from Sheringham Beach Chalet, number 10 Sheringham Beach Chalet, which is at the most westerly end of the promenade at Sheringham. And I've got this little tiny chalet, and you'll see that it's completely covered in the weather memories that people have given to us, their contributions of their memories about the weather. We've asked them for them, we've been collecting them in boxes here and up and down, around this part of the coast over the last month. And they range from little pictures to stories, recollections, up-to-date ones of recent days, right back to things that happened many years ago in people's childhoods. First memories of weather. Got some stuff about events that have happened on the coast here very recently, including a mini tsunami. Got northern lights being recorded. Things from other countries. We've got mentions of Namibia and Death Valley and desert rain. We've got things from the 1953 floods, the hurricane in '87, all sorts of things. And so, whilst I sit and talk to people about memories, I'm also working on my own project, which is a sort of weather diary and a technique of seeing whether I can record marks made by the weather as it happens. So I'm interested in how the ultraviolet hits the ground and what can help me record marks about the weather. So you'll see that that's happened on these silks. Record traces of water and sand, and the marks in the sand, wet water running underneath pebbles on the beach, the flow of water across silk, or the sort of little delta patterns that are left on the sand. So I'm just kind of making marks and seeing how the weather and the elements affect the colour in the dye.
We are making an artwork which forms a practical as well as esoteric function, and that's I guess it's the closest thing is almost like a church or a shrine or a cathedral. In our case it's to the entities of wind and ocean and the birds, the land. And we've just started by putting up a gateway over there where they are literally the feathers of birds. The colour is red, which renders it sacred and divine. And yeah, it's a good sign to see it flapping in the wind and blowing around. Makes a lovely noise too. Very important that. Yeah, and I've been using this plastic here. This is the Fish King and that's the Tempest Lord, so they're brothers, and they're always fighting. They're fighting ever since their parents split up. And yeah, sort of know what it feels like on a bad day here. So we put the designs up to acknowledge them and visualise them, and make them live, and kind of see through them. Yeah. So they even kind of influence what we see when we look at them. We're going to completely transform this space, this room, and then Ben's digging our post where we're going to connect and make a artwork in the sky above us. The roof will be an artwork, and render this space out here into an outside version of this space. So it will be one. The idea that the wind is at war with the sea and the land is this whole kind of equation for this coastal erosion, really. This ongoing battle between these three elemental forces, that's sea versus land versus sky. Yeah, it's like a big war, big battle royale, a divine battle. And all these things really just kind of came about, you know, yesterday and last night for us. We got here, you know, we needed a day to clean the place. That's our way of kind of cleaning our emptying our minds, and then gave us time to sort of like hear what was going on around us. The birds were saying things, people were saying things, the sky and the ocean was saying lots of things. We've got plenty to do. Yeah. We've got 6 days, it's great. So by Saturday we're hoping that we can, you know, transform this whole space. Yeah.
using the things that we've brought and the things that we find. Sure, Mark's doing the same down there.
Yeah, I'm going to go have a chat with him in a minute.
So you can see, oh, George already said that. Oh, George already said that as well.
I'm going to make a series of adornments for the art tours that we're bringing into the space. So just make sure they're all properly attired to meet people, and so it's sort of, you know, and using a lot of the materials that have just been lying around here too. So trying to recycle a bit. So I didn't want to bring in sort of more. The last thing Coast needs more plastic. Yesterday I went down to the beach and just sort of went to have a listen. Have a listen to Tangaroa, have a listen to Tāwhiri Mātia and see what they, you know, had to say, because the first night we were here was amazing. It was so fantastic to actually be so in touch with the great outdoors. And then basically I'll be contributing sort of words as well. So I'll be adorning the space with words and with different sort of prayers and stuff. But all our old gods were always fully adorned, so it's, you know, got to look their best. And so basically, yeah, so we've got very rudimental. I'll be basically using a lot of very traditional craft-based techniques. And responding to George, it's a great time for George and I to discuss and sort of bring about ideas. But there's a lot of it on the beach. I mean, it's quite, plastic's one of the #1 killers of our sort of coast and our oceans in the Pacific, so it's really kind of ironic to be using it because I hate it so much.
That's why I say slightly nervous next.
Kina ki yuta, kia mataratara ki tai, kia hui ake ana te atakura, he tio ka, he hau hu, ti hei mauri ora, tēnā koutou nā manuhiri, nau mai, haere mai, whakatau mai ki a mātou mahi nei. Kaupane, kaupane, whiti tērā, kamate, kamate, nei te tangata, huru nei te ki, whakawhiti tērā, kaupane, whiti tērā, hei!
I didn't know.
Nuku.